Good evening and welcome to night 4 of the Grand Slam Fallout Bar. And what a night we have had of darts. We've had a few dames with nothing riding on, but a lot of dames with a lot riding on, and some brilliant darts, brilliant drama. And I am joined by Dan Simpson. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you very much, Lee. Yeah, very good. And you hit the nail on the head there. What a good night. They've certainly saved the best to last in those opening group matches. What a way to finish. And it's set up some rather interesting, well, certainly an interesting next few days, hasn't it? Absolute cracker of a night tonight. Really good.
Yeah, and just before we go into the dames, first of all, let's go into the chat room and just say quick hello to the people who are in. We've got Jack, who was in nice and early. I'd seen earlier on. Daniel is in the chat room. How you doing, my friend? Tom is in. Daniel, Colin, Matthew. If I've missed anyone, I apologise. But just before we go into the dames, Dan, these Monday and Tuesday nights of the Grand Slam can sometimes offer up quite a lot of dead rubbers, and then 2 or 3 dames that have an awful lot riding on it, and sometimes we don't quite have the drama that we've seen tonight. But my God, tonight we have seen quite a lot of brilliant darts, and not just from dames that mean something. And I know we'll touch upon those certain names shortly, but actually all 8 of those dames have produced something tonight.
Yeah, it was really good, and you're right. We've had over the last few years, we've had a few flat Monday and Tuesdays. Yeah, we're not much riding on them and not much depending on it. But it really has. I think throughout the night, obviously there was big events on who went through and who didn't go through, and obviously we'll come to some of that in a bit. But there seemed to be sort of peril at every turn tonight. As we went through the evening, there was big changes, not just to who was going through, but what the draw looked like tomorrow, and also what those difference in finishing positions meant in the order of merit, because we are at that really, really important time of year where you could potentially be or not be a seed for the World Championships, and people are running out of opportunities to do that. And also those seeded draws as well. Like, there's some really, really interesting things to come out of tonight and yesterday. It's been very, very interesting.
And I think, Dan, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's a crucial time of the year. We've got so much to play for in regards to seedings, in regards to Tortard races. There's so much riding on each individual wins, and just a just a certain win finishing third and that you a bit more money. Obviously, getting into the knockout stages, then obviously it's just a completely sort of open-ending amount of money that you can win on the PDC Tour when you're on a TV event that can be life-changing. So one win, or in moments tonight, one leg can be so crucial in your next few months and going into the rest of the season. So I think it's the perfect time to go into the night's action. We'll go in the order of play as it was. Just before we go into that, just a huge thank you as always to BoyleSports, our sponsors. It's the first night I've done it for a few weeks. I'm always going to forget something, Dan. So that's hopefully my one mistake for tonight, just missing off the sponsors at the start. But I'll make sure I name drop them then towards the end. But just going into that first dame then, as I said, every dame offered something tonight, even if there wasn't much riding on it. This was probably one of the dames that, when you saw on paper that there wasn't anything riding on it, it wasn't one that really got you off the seat. However, when the dame got underway, there was some very good stuff, even though there was inconsistency from what Amina and Leonard dates. But there was some good stuff in there as well.
Yeah, it was, and when you look at the statistics, you don't look at it and think it's it's a great. It's not very often a player will win 5-1, only drop one leg, but average 88, which is what Amina managed to get through the game at this evening. So we didn't start the evening completely on fire, but it was. I think the best way I would describe it, and we use the word quite a bit, is it was a very professional performance from Watmina, and he just turned up and played played the board and beat his opponent very comfortably. And you think he might be playing his way into a little bit of form. I think, his form has been very up and down. So I just think coming through that game with a very comfortable score is going to be really, really good for him. And he definitely looks like a player that's on the up at the minute, doesn't he?
Yeah, and we've got no clips this evening. Hopefully, from tomorrow night, we'll start having them. The clips coming through. Obviously, with 8 games, there is a very quick turnaround of that knees on. But I have had a listen to what Amina's interview, and just to give sort of a bit of overview of what Jermaine said, is that form that he had back in, I think he's 2018, that he's finding himself getting back to what was the best version of Jermaine Watamina we've seen. And yes, maybe we didn't see it throughout the whole of this game, but coming into this group with Leonard Dates, who we've seen do some fantastic stuff, Johnny Clayton, we know the ability of Johnny Clayton, and Damon Heta, yes, hasn't got a great TV record. However, his performances on the tour have been very good. We've obviously seen him pick up the World Cup and a recent floor winner. To get through this group, for me, however he played was enough to lift the confidence of someone like Jermaine Watamina. The fact he's played very well over these 3 games, I'm with you. The confidence boost must have been massive now going into the rest of this week.
Yeah, definitely. Because if we're really honest, there wasn't. We see. We live in that sort of darts world, and we see everyone on Twitter, and we see what people comment in the chat room here and everything else. There wasn't a great deal of people that, regardless of Damon Heta's record on television, that had picked Jermaine Watamina to come through this group. And he's come through it in the end very comfortably. So he's gone against what a lot of people expected. And informed Jermaine Watamina is a really, really exciting prospect. And we'll see what he can do with that form and that confidence later this week. But, we'll keep alluding to it. It is certainly the right time of year to start to hit a bit of form. And I think regardless of how he goes in the last 16, he's going to take something from these last few days and the way that he's played and come through that group. And we'll come to them in a bit, but I think, others may not take a great deal and others may take it in a slightly negative way going forwards.
And Jermaine Watamina's win, what that did for the next game was meant that Damon Heta needed to whitewash Johnny Clayton, and no real surprise here to see that was ended within the second leg. But Damon Heta then went on to win that day in 5-2. And disappointment for Damon Heta, who I think looking at this group would have fancied getting through the group. As I said, if many people are predicting that Damon had come through with Johnny, the fact he's got the 2 wins, but the lead difference have really impacted him. It's looking back over the 3 games, it's that first one that's really Jermaine Watamina beating Damon Heta 5-2 on that opener was a shot, but it certainly damaged his chances then moving forward.
It is, and that, if we're honest, is pretty much where the group was decided. Because with the greatest respect to Leonard Gates, I think even those who didn't pick Jermaine to go through, they sort of picked Johnny Clayton and one of Heta or Watamina. That's where we all thought this group was going to go. So I think once that game went first and Jermaine won it, Damon Heta was always going to be up against it and very unlikely to come through. Now, yes, he's won that game 5-2. What he's then started to do, I think, is he's played well and he's managed to get his darts going once the shackles have come off and once the hope is gone. And the tournament was essentially over then and the pressure was on. Those first couple of legs, the pressure was absolutely massive on Damon Heta tonight. And I don't think it's a coincidence that once that pressure's disappeared, yes, he got the disappointment of not going through, but once that pressure's gone, he's able to put his darts where he wants them to go. So I don't think that win over Johnny Clayton tonight is a particular sign that Damon Heta can get it done on the television, because he all those legs came when they didn't matter.
Yeah, but and to that point, you've sort of alluded to it there. His TV form hasn't been great. There's been a lot of first round defeats. Grand Slam is slightly different. I don't really want to say a group stage is a first round defeat. However, it's the equivalent of it. It's the earliest you can be knocked out, obviously, in this stage. And
well, he got beaten in his first match, so if it was a knockout, he's out, isn't he?
Yeah, very, very, very true, mate. But I guess trying to look at it positively for Damon Heta. He's climbing up the rankings, and for someone to be able to climb up the rankings and be knocked out in the first round, is it just it's that win on TV that's needed, that big sort of first round win, that beating a top 16 player or beating a top 8 player in a first or second round, and that maybe will change that confidence on TV stage for Damon, because we know the Dame's there.
Yeah, I think so, and I think what will be interesting, we're obviously only a few weeks. I know we're mid-major at the minute, but we are only a matter of days, a couple of weeks away from the championship finals. And he's obviously very well seeded going into that. And that, whilst he will find himself on the television because he's very well seeded, it's a slightly different tournament. You know, I'm devastated to not be at that tournament this year because it's one of my absolute favourites to be present for. But I just think that might be the place where he can start to get a couple of wins on the board or on a television event. And I think he'll have his eye on that, I think.
And then just moving on, just sort of one question for me around Johnny Clayton. And he's lost today, but he was already through. And we've seen certainly different levels of performances from players who are already through. We've seen some outstanding stuff from players who have already got the place in, and some people who have sort of relaxed and are ready. But if we just look at Johnny Clayton over the group, 10 lads played before tonight. 10 lads won. Was on for course to be the best ever group winner. I think he needed to win 5-1. Could have even been 5-2 to match Phil Taylor. But from a numbers perspective, Dan, and I know we don't want to look too much into numbers, but he's only averaged 92, 89 and 85. So, I mean, average of that around that 89 average. It's not a great standard by Johnny Clayton. But was it just all about getting through for him and now with him building blocks to move forward?
I think it is for everybody, barring one or two. You know, I think for virtually everybody in this tournament, then their absolute main and only focus essentially is getting through that group and getting into a knockout round where they can start to play, you know, knockout matches. I think there are individuals within that sphere in which topping the group and having really high numbers and breaking records and showing the world how good they are is very important. I don't think that's the case for Johnny Clayton. I think Johnny Clayton will be a very happy man coming out of that group and going into the round of 16, regardless of that result tonight.
So just to confirm, in Group F, we had Johnny Clayton on top with 4 points, Jermaine Wattamina second on 4 points, Damon Heta third on 4 points, missing out by one led to match Jermaine, so 2 was needed on the average, and then Leonard Dates finished bottom of that group. Then we moved on, just checking the order of players enters, I've got results up from everywhere. Then we moved on to Group G, which was opened with a fantastic game between one up-and-coming star in Nathan Rafferty, and probably the same could be said about Luke Woodhouse. Yeah, we've seen a lot more of Luke than we have Nathan, but still a long career in this sport, you'd expect. And what a game of darts this was, Dan.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And it's two up-and-coming superstars, isn't it? And you know, you look at their current rankings and you'd be fooled into thinking that this wasn't going to be a really high caliber game of two top performers. But that is just the way that darts rankings work. You know, the stats that we saw in this game were absolutely top draw, to be honest. The 170 out from Luke Woodhouse, which I believe, I've not been on the show this week, but I've been in the chat room every night. That was the first one, I think, Lee, was it, of the tournament?
Yeah, that's right, mate. Yeah.
You know, the first 170 that we've seen, just impressive all round. I was really, really impressed with Nathan Rafferty. We've seen Nathan play really well last year. Certainly hasn't disgraced himself this year. He's given a really good account of himself, and again, playing himself into some form at the right time of the year. I think he's done a cracking job tonight, and both guys had a superb game. Just looking against the game that we talked about a minute or two ago, the average is there, 101 average. I mean, it's not very often that you're gonna be in the situation that Woodhouse was in tonight, where he's hit 5 180s, he's averaged 101, he's checked 170 out, and he's not got over the line. He was 66% on the doubles as well. He hit 4 out of 6. Like it's just that Rafferty's had an absolutely unbelievable game. Right, not quite there on every stat really, Rafferty. Woodhouse had, if you're a numbers person, Woodhouse had all the numbers, but like our friend says, sometimes you just got to do the right things at the right time, and that's exactly what Nathan Rafferty did through the course of that game.
Yeah, he did it for the toss time, and it was always on his throw. How well that he really played. I know there was a couple of breaks in there, but generally, the reason that Rafferty was 5 points less than Luke Woodhouse is the amount of pressure Luke Woodhouse was putting him under, and Rafferty was taking it out. And hopefully, you'd like to see Rafferty take that sort of pressure doubling away from him. Slightly different this evening because there was nothing riding on it for Rafferty, but what a performance by the young man. And equally, if you're going to go out, you want to go out in style, and Luke Woodhouse has certainly done that with the first 170. As I said, as you said, the number of 180s and the 101 average is not to be sniffed at. But moving on then to the second game in Group G, Dan. This game had absolutely nothing riding on it because of what happened the day before, unless Ross Smith done something magnificent and completely, I think, whitewashed MVG to have jumped above him. But what a game of darts. So just run through some numbers, Dan, before I come to you. 104.8 for MVG, 107.92 for Ross Smith. We had 9 leads of darts that included 11 180s, 9 of which from Ross Smith, which is a new record. We also had a 145 checkout from MVG, with both players averaging, one averaging 50% and one averaging 55%. Sometimes numbers don't tell you about a game of darts, but my God, that does.
I feel like we run out of words at the minute, I think, for some of the way that Ross Smith plays. And he is just a man that looks at times absolutely imperious. And there's, Ross has always had a tremendous game. We've known that for a few years. We've watched him on Pro Tour events, and we've always knew he could turn it on. What we just started to see, I think, is all of those glimpses we used to get on the Pro Tour events of him just doing special things here and there. And he's managing to find a level of consistency with that at the minute. I appreciate this hasn't been over an extended period of time. I'm talking about a period of a couple of, weeks rather than months at the moment. But if he can start to sustain the level at which he's playing at the moment on television, under pressure, in big events against top players, then the next 12 to 18 months is going to be very, very interesting for Ross Smith, because, the way he came out tonight, playing against Michael van Gerwen, and I appreciate he's got nothing to lose, but neither did Michael van Gerwen either. And we know that Michael van Gerwen cares about winning the group and cares about coming top, but he cares about winning darts matches. Like, Michael van Gerwen does not want to lose a darts match, and he will fight and crawl, whether it means anything or not. And to come out and put on a display like that is absolutely superb in my eyes. And again, we'll come to the nuance of what means what later on. But for me, has played himself in amazing form into what I think is the tie of the round of 16.
Not just yet, Dan. Not just yet. We'll move on to that shortly. Not just yet. But what that meant for Group G was that MVG did top the group on 4 points with a +6. Ross Smith was second on 4 points as well with a +3. Luke Woodhouse missing out on 2 points, as did Nathan Rafferty on 2 points. Luke Woodhouse finishing third on -4 and Rafferty on -5. So then we moved on. So just past the halfway mark, we had a game between Alan Suter and Fallon Sherritt. For Fallon, who was already eliminated, Alan Suter was in a position where he just needed really the best result possible. A 5-0 would have got him through automatically. Anything else was just then putting him in a better position before Peter Wright and Nathan Aspinall went head to head. And this game of darts, we just spoke about the numbers in the other one. But if someone said to me, you can watch a Dane bat tonight, this probably would be that Dane, because the moments in this, and I know there's a certain lead where Fallon sits perfect and Suter it's a wonderful 1-3-2 with a near impossible second bullseye. But this game as a whole, it just showed where Alan Suter's game's come over the past couple of months, probably since qualification and the Pro Tours recently. But equally, I'm glad that we got to see this side of Fallon, because it's not been a great tournament for her. It's not been a great few months for her in regards to the levels that we know she can perform. But today, she certainly showed glimpses of quality with the few 180s in there and the sits perfect in there, and near enough all those legs pushing Alan Suter all the way.
Yeah, and you know, again, 5-2. In all honesty, I think is a generous, it's a generous scoreline for Alan Suter. He did enough to win, and he's obviously got through that seemingly quite comfortably. But Fallon was there or thereabouts in most of those legs. She did put the pressure on, and she forced Alan Suter to play something. I mean, as I say, the 1-3-2 was absolutely incredible. That second bullseye that went in was absolutely remarkable. Really impressive stuff. But she forced that, and she did. She played the best, certainly the best that she's played this week. Really, really good to see her. Certainly, I think she's had a bit of a, I don't want to say a stressful week, but like there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of. She does get. She has more media commitments than most of the other players to do. She has a lot of potential distractions that are all going along and sitting alongside as well. And I think she's given a really good account of herself. She's the end of the group stage has almost come at the wrong time. You sort of feel that if it was a round robin where everyone played each other twice, she'd probably be there at the end. She'd probably be pushing for it at the end, because she's improved as the tournament's gone on. She's just run out of matches.
Yeah, and it's strange to look at that from an average perspective. Tonight was her weakest performance. However, watching that game, as I said, it was a very interesting watch. It was something that it's one that to look back on, because there was signs of that game from Fallon Sherritt coming back to, like I says, what we've seen before and what she's produced on TV. But I think it would only be right to move on to one of the stocks in the group, being Alan Suter, who at this point was waiting nervously, that he knew that a Nathan Aspinall result going very, very well, or a Peter Wright result going very, very well would have helped him, or both of which that have won and still knocked Alan Suter out. So he was going back into the back room, not really having one player to support, but supporting either of them to do really well. It was a very, very strange position that he was in.
Let's be really honest. Like, he can't have been too confident either, because in all honesty, what he needed to happen was probably, to most people, the least likely outcome. I think everybody thought this was going to be a close game. I had this mark for a 4-all deciding leg, and I think a lot of people thought it was going to be, at least 5-3. That I think what he needed was what we were least likely to get. But lo and behold, that is exactly what we did get in the end.
Yeah, so we'll move on to we'll come back to the group as whole, but we'll move on to that second game now. That was Peter Wright versus Nathan Aspinall. And for anyone who didn't watch it, Peter Wright was 2-1 in front in this one, and missed 2 darts. I can't remember off the top of my head which double it was, but missed 2 darts at a double to lead 3-1, which would have been enough to secure Peter Wright's passage into the next round, and then Nathan Aspinall would have needed to down and win the game. However, Peter Wright missed with those 2, and then Nathan Aspinall went on to win 4 on the bounce to knock out one Scotsman, but to put another Scotsman into the last 16. And we saw the world champion get knocked out at the group stages, which I called last Monday, but I did not call it in Alan Souter coming through the other side. But Nathan Aspinall, what a win. And we've mentioned it plenty of times, Dan, whether it's been with yourself or other people on the show. How much bottle has Nathan Aspinall got?
I think he's got as much as anybody on the tour. I think he's, he probably sits very, very much at the top of that pile. He is and appears unflappable in a lot of situations that he just manages to dig in. He's a proper fighter in terms of getting through matches and knowing and doing what he needs to do. Completely. He went into this game knowing that if he got a bit of a hiding, which, let's be honest, he's playing the world champion. Like Peter Wright dishes out hidings in darts for a profession. That's what he does. So Nathan knew going into this that he was A, the underdog in the match, and B, if he did get beat, it couldn't be by too much, and he had to keep it tight. But he showed a tremendous amount of ball against. If we're completely honest and a bit reflective, probably not the best Peter Wright, the best version of Peter Wright that we could have seen. It's not very often that Peter Wright plays a match on TV and his highest checkout's 38. That doesn't happen very often at all. So I don't think he was playing the best version of Peter Wright, but you've got to hit the board, and you've got to in terms of quality, we didn't see a lot of quality in all honesty from both. The 140 hitting wasn't there from either of them really with any consistency. We didn't see a 180 at all. But Nathan Aspinall did enough. Dug in, got where he needed to be, and is quite rightfully in the next round.
Yeah, just before we down up and some sort of sum up this through, just looking at Colin's comment, and I was going to allude to it next anyway, but there's a lot of things Colin's put. There was a lot of things on his mind, like with Joe in hospital. So Peter had a lot on his mind, not on the day. Yeah, 100% agree. Don't know the ins and outs of the story. I know it was mentioned in Tom's that Joe got rushed to hospital on Saturday, I believe, due to gallstones. Just don't know what I've heard on TV. Heard from what they said that she's okay. She's still in hospital, but she's okay now. So from everyone at Online Darts, of course, we send our best wishes to Joe. And yet, when you're up on that board, it's not like there's a game of football or you've got someone sort of there supporting you. With Peter Wright and with everyone else in Dart, it is all on you as an individual. And the only time you've got someone of support is when you look down to your left and you've got whether it be your management company, your family, your friend, whoever it may be who you've brought support. And we know that when Peter's normally on that stage, it is Joe next to him on that left-hand side who's there to support. So, yes, that can have an impact. Yes, there was times that Peter wasn't right himself and didn't look himself on the stage. I was surprised to see him do his little hands up dance. We don't normally see that on a joint walk-on. There was just signs there that, yeah, Peter wasn't at the levels that Peter is, and hopefully now we can be there for Joe. But I'm still convinced that going into the back end of the year, he's in the midst of that one and potentially lift another title, whatever that may be, Players' Worlds, or then moving into early next year. There's still that down there, isn't there, Dan?
Of course, like he's Peter Wright. And that is it. Those clutch of players that are at the very, very top of this game, they can have as many stinkers as they want, and they will remain, the bookies' favourites going into tournaments because they are the best in the world at throwing darts. and that doesn't happen every single time. Man City don't win every match that they play. But over the course of a long period of time, you add all those games up together, they win a lot more than everybody else does. And you have got that in all sports, and Peter Wright is right at the top of darts. Rough spell, bad spell, few bad games. That means nothing to somebody like him. He just come out we've got another tournament in a couple of weeks. With a bit of luck, everything that's been on his mind in the last few days is put to rest, and all is well, and everything turns out perfect. Which means he can get dug in, because we know he does like to have a run in Minehead as well.
Yeah, he certainly does. So moving back to the final standings at Group E, from top to bottom, in first place, to the surprise of Nathan Aspinall himself, was Nathan Aspinall. He didn't know that the win and the manner of that win put him into top spot. So Nathan Aspinall was on 4 points with a +6. Alan Souter moved into second with 4 points +3. Peter Wright then missed out on one leg. As I mentioned, he finished third on +2, also with 4 points, and Fallon Sherritt finished bottom without a win in this year's Grand Slam. And then the final group we had left to see still had it all to play for. And to be honest, we all sort of expected this to have all to play for, because trying to pick the names of this on the live lounge last week, I remember that I don't think any of us had the same two players going through. I'm sure someone did have Luke Humphries and Josh Rock. It wasn't me, because I had Ryan Searle. But we all had different two in that selection. And this group 100% delivered from day one all the way to the final game tonight, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. It was termed the group of death as soon as the draw was made public, and it all over social media, everybody's eyes were on this group as being the hardest group to come out of, and it was a really interesting group, because how often do you see something that people universally right across the darts media were referring to as the group of death, and it hasn't got a player in the top 5 in it. And it's not like you've got a group and you've got Price and Michael van Gerwen and someone else, and Barney's qualified. It wasn't that. It was just players that everybody knows have got an unbelievable A game, and I think that's what it was about in this group. It was about who could find their A game most consistently in across those 3 matches. And I just think that it ended up being very complex and quite mathematical, but that just shows how competitive this group was, and it swung multiple times throughout the evening. As just me sat watching it, I must have changed what my order was that I thought was going to happen 6, 7, 8 times as the first game, then the second game went on. The first game was just an absolutely fantastic performance from Scott Williams. It really, really was, and I have been waiting for Scott Williams to do that. Well, all this week, like I really wanted him, on with all those eyes on him on TV, and he has been. I think he's been superb all week in terms of offering some entertainment and some character and some personality, and offering every bit of himself, to be honest, out to the world and the public on television, playing darts. And tonight he carried on doing that, but managed to match it with an absolutely stonking performance. Rattled off. The thing, he's only been outdone really by that ridiculous performance from Ross Smith earlier in the night. But 107.46 average. The 6 180s that he's shown, 11 140s, just darts of the highest level. You don't see people on television playing darts on a short form that good that often. It was really, really spectacular to watch. Ryan Searle did not have a bad game at all. Ryan Searle averaged 102 and played really well. It was 30 over 30% on his doubles and was in that game. But just an absolutely stonking performance from Williams that gave himself the best chance he could hope for.
Yeah, you mentioned there, Ryan. So, looking at this group as a whole, you nailed it there in the sense of it was a group of death because of their A games and not their B games. Probably Luke Humphries' B game is levels above the other three, but as an A game, they all can produce ridiculous things. And I think throughout this group, if you looked, and probably three of them have been very close to it tonight, two definitely, have performed their A game at some point throughout this group. The lowest single average from a player at any point, so just their top average is Josh Roth at 99.26. Stott Williams is 107.46. Luke Humphries is 107.04. And Ryan Searle is 103.59. And Ryan Searle's 103.59 was followed by the 101.92. And that guy has finished bottom of the group. Yes, it's not all on numbers, and it is about doing the right stuff at the right time, and I'm totally in belief of that. But for me, if there is one group that has delivered and more, it is this one. And this game summed it up because Stott Williams, other than the ridiculous choice of footwear, I thought them yellow shoes were bad the other night, but wearing trainers with yellow is just a no. But other than that, Stott Williams did everything spot on. Ryan Searle, let's be honest, didn't really put a foot wrong. There wasn't a lot more that Ryan Searle could do, and that guy's finished bottom of the group.
Yeah, I think I sort of hinted at it, and you sort of detailed it better than I did. This group was about over the course of potentially 27 legs, over 3 lots of 9 legs. Which two of the 4 could play their A game for the most of those 27 legs, and that was what this group was always going to be. The Ryan Searle and Scott Williams have been done by the draw, because the way that those guys have turned up and played this week would have comfortably come through a couple of most other groups. Those guys would have come through playing the way that they've played. If they're just playing the board, would have come through. So they've been unfortunate to be drawn in the group that they have, but it's not unfortunate for us spectators and enjoyers of darts competition, because it did make for superb matches and some really just interesting and entertaining darts on telly tonight.
And what that result did from Stott Williams, just to paint the picture moving into that last game, Stott Williams winning 5-3 meant that he needed Luke Humphries to win 5-2 or better. So then we had the last game, and Luke Humphries versus Josh Roth. It's slightly different because I guess if it's a build-up and they're both fighting for something, it could be a little bit different. However, it's also delivered with many other things. Both averaged around the 99 mark. Both had moments of quality, but the one key part of this game was at 3-2 to Luke Humphries. Josh Roth found a fantastic 1-2-1. And the only thing that I don't like about this is he apologised for the celebration, because yeah, he's mid-game, but it's not a normal mid-game. Luke Humphries already qualified. Josh Roth needed 3 legs. It didn't disturb the throw at all. Go and celebrate Josh Roth, because the 2 legs after that, Dan, the smile on his face was just great to see.
It was. I get, there was no need to apologise, for the celebration. And I think Luke Humphries was the main person telling him that there was no need to apologise for that celebration. But the thing is, I think it's very, when you see him playing the way that he plays, it's very easy to forget how little experience he has in these situations, in these tournaments, on Sky TV, playing the very best in the world in those, in these major tournaments. So, like, I'm willing to forgive all manner of different things of protocol and procedure, because the lad's not done it before. He's not been here before. He hasn't done it, and he's a debutant in the tournament. And for me, I just think he's learning his trade. He certainly served his apprenticeship and learned his trade as a darts player. He's learning his trade now as a televised PDC major player. I don't think he was disrespectful. I don't think it was uncalled for or anything like that. I think it was a perfectly natural reaction, and I do think the only person that you could have potentially argued it was disrespectful to would have been Luke Humphries, who, from what I can figure out, was the player that was, or the person that was most saying to him, don't worry about it, well done.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Just on Luke Humphries, we will come back to Josh Roth, but just on Luke Humphries for now. Luke Humphries is number 7 in the world, but without a major TV title. We've seen him pick up numerous Euro Tour titles. I'm sure we'll come on to it more when we're doing his prediction for the last 16 on Wednesday night, as me and you are on for the next 3, and we'll talk about then after his game on Thursday. But how close is Luke Humphries, do you think, to that first title on TV?
He's as close as Michael Smith. I don't know. I think he's what we haven't seen him do yet is well, it's one of them, isn't it? Getting over the line is a big deal. Getting over the line the first time on a big major TV title is a big deal. And I don't know. He could surprise the world, and he could surprise me. I'm not sure whether it's quite there yet in terms of his mentality and him being able to get through that tournament and remain completely composed and get over the line. I'd love to see it. I think it'd be great to do. I'm not convinced just yet. We know he's got the game. We know he's got the A game, but winning majors and getting over the line is a different thing. And I think I'd like to see a bit more of that. I think that grit and that composure, and I think if he'd I've maybe been swayed a little bit today on the fact that we didn't win that game. I think if he'd have come out tonight and beat Rock 5-2, I might have thought, like, this is a guy that knows he can win, that wants to win this tournament and knows he can win. And I worry sometimes that later in the tournament that game will creep back into his head, and he hasn't. He's not gone on a run of wins. He hasn't built up some momentum. He's not. I don't know. We'll see over the next few days. I'd love to see it, but I'm not convinced just yet.
And just one more on Josh Roth. I'm going to dial back some comments earlier in the chat room. 2 comments actually, both from Scottish FM 51. First one that was put in: does this a game in the future? We're not going to go into detail on this, as we'll preview this tomorrow night. But Josh Roth versus MVG has future World Championship final match written all over it. Very hard to disagree. But another one that comes to mind that is on this group is Luke Humphries and Josh Roth are the future of darts over the next 30 years. Can't wait to watch their careers unfold. And I can see, obviously, I don't want to put so much pressure on, especially young lads, especially Josh Roth. Luke Humphries probably a little bit more because we've seen more of him, but all the length of time. But what I can't wait for is more matchups between these two, Dan, and more matchups of let's say a first to 16 or a first to or a best, which we may see later on in the week.
Yeah, and
best of 4 or 5 sets.
We'll come to that a little bit later on in the differences that the change in format will bring for certain players, because there's certain players that this race to 5 suits very well. There's others it doesn't suit very well at all. And then that changes and turns on its head a little bit into the longer format. Just what I'll tell you, just very quick observation or a thought that I had through the course of the evening. Just when we're talking about the future of darts, and we're talking, is it Humphries and Rock and them being forward. I'll tell you what I did, or the thought that I had tonight when I watched Nathan Rafferty win that game. I sat and thought to myself, I'll tell you what, at some point in the future, Northern Ireland are going to have one hell of a World Cup team.
Yep.
And I thought, I just thought, I went, I tell you what, maybe we'll give it 5-6 years, that could be the team. That could be the team that everybody's that year that everyone was absolutely terrified of meeting Wales because those two were the two most informed players on the planet. Like that could be Northern Ireland in not a tremendously long period of time. What a future that World Cup team could have.
The first thing that popped in my head when he said that is, I feel like we need a next gen World Cup. Because my God, that would be good to see with them guys in.
Yeah, I want to see the 30s World Cup. That's what I want to say. Can we do that in some sort of fantasy thing? Can we do it under 30s World Cup? That'd be great.
So, Ades, we are now going to move on to tomorrow night. However, it feels very weird as we're talking about the future of darts here. But when we move on to tomorrow night, if someone would have said 5 years ago that this game would be game number 1 in a last 16 tie, we are moving on to Raymond van Barneveld versus Simon Whitlock, Dan. And we've spoken about the future, but these two players, especially this week, Barney in particular, can produce some magic stuff. And this is going to be a difficult one to predict.
It really is. Well, I don't know whether it is or isn't. It's not for me. Like, I know exactly what I think is going to happen. I think Barney wins comfortably. And I don't know. So that, like, Barney's I'm a big fan of Barney, and so there was something he said, like, so he's done quite a bit of media this week, and he did an interview with Polly where he was walking down the canal and he was explaining where he was at and what he was doing, and he was talking about his goals and his targets, and he said, well, and he said with a complete straight face with no irony at all. He said, well, my aim is to just make sure that I'm top 32 and seeded for the World Championships. And then I came and when he said it, I had to look up the rankings. I was thinking, hang on, like what? And I thought, really? Like, is that a realistic? But I just think he's in the. I think that he has hit. It's not even his darts play for me. I just think it's upstairs. I think he's clicked probably for the first time since he came back on the tour, where like he's convinced himself and me that he really means it. Now I'm not sure that'll be enough, to carry him deep into the tournament. Looking at where his game's at the minute. Whitlock does have potential and to play amazing. Like he's got that amazing air game, and the guy can rattle off 180s for fun, and he scores incredibly well all the time. But I think Barney's got to. Whitlock is up and down, and he's been up and down more so in the last 2 years than probably ever in his career. We see some great stuff from him, and then we see very little, and it goes up and down a bit. We've seen some good stuff from him this week. I'm not convinced he can sustain it. We're all the way at that level through the tournament. So yeah, for me, it's a comfortable Barney win.
So chat room, get your predictions in. Comfortable Barney win. Dan, we're on this show for the next 3 nights, so definitely for the next 2. We've got a little challenge coming up because I'm facing you with these predictions because I need to win something at some points. So I'm coming up against you. I am noting these down. These are going down, and we are going to have a look at these.
Like Super 6, like 3 points for a record, 5 points for a correct score, 2 points for a correct winner. We're gonna do it properly.
We can do exactly that. Dan, Barney, 10. What are you doing?
10-6.
10-6. I am going for Whitlock. I do think it'll be close. I am going for 10-8 for Simon Whitlock. Next game up. I feel like they've messed up a little bit on this order because for me, this is also a great game and it's only second. But it is. And Tommy, thanks for agreeing with me. That means if anyone agrees with me normally, it means it's never going to happen. So Tommy is down for 10-8 Whitlock. Next up is Michael Smith and Rob Cross again. Looking at tomorrow night, if there was one game and there was only one game I was able to watch, I think it would be Michael Smith and Rob Cross. I've tipped Michael Smith to go on and lift the title this week. And yes, the 180s haven't been there. Is it only 2 in 3 games? If memory serves me right, it's not been normal Michael Smith. However, for him to get over the line in the group, and to now be in the last 16, is to now find a way to step that up. So I won't give my stall on just yet. So I'm still thinking about it. I'll come over to you, Dan, but I can only see one winner in this, in Michael Smith.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think I definitely think that it's a Michael Smith win. I haven't seen enough from Rob Cross this week that makes me think he's going to pose any real problem. I think that the longer format plays into Michael Smith's hands more so, because it just gives you more opportunities to bang 180s in and to hit a bit of a rhythm. Michael Smith's such a rhythm player that once he's on, he's in, and he sort of tunes it in quite well. So I think that that longer format does lend very well with that rhythm that he plays. I don't think it's quite as heavy. I'd go 10-7, Smith.
I'm going to go 10-6. 10-6, I am thinking. You saying 10-7? Let's have a look in the chat room. Tommy's on 10-6, Michael Smith. Jack, there is no two clear legs rule in the Grand Slam. It will just be best of 19. So you don't 11-9 Smith. I'll take that as a 10-9. Collins on 10-5 to Bully Boy. There's a 10-7 for Barney in the previous game. And Darren's followed that up with a 10-5 Michael Smith. Game number 3 tomorrow night. Derwin Price versus Danny Noppert. Another top game. Some of these, it is hard to believe that these are just last 16 games, but it is Noppy, UK Open winner against world number 1.
Yeah. It's I think for me personally, I think it's probably the hardest one to pick of these, because
Dan, just before you do, just think about, because I wasn't on last night, just think about winning your group and then being told you'd have Derwin Price in the next round.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking, that, isn't it?
He's not nice, is he?
No, it's not. There is absolutely no advantage at all, is there? He's had a poor draw, Danny Noppert, and I think that it's dead right. I think Danny Noppert is not gonna come through it. Again, I think it's going to be slightly tighter than the last two, because I think Danny's gonna dig in quite well, but Derwin Price and we saw it at the end of that last game, just has that level and that gear to go to. Certainly when he is in Wolverhampton, he can find that gear, and I think he finds that gear relatively late in the game, and I think it's a 10-8 to Gezi Price, but I'm going to have him coming from behind and winning probably 3 on the bounce to do it.
Derwin Price and Wolverhampton just go hand in hand. It's so difficult to pick, because I actually think Noppy's game is getting close to when he picked up the UK Open and elements of that. I have just written down my answer, and I'm changing it. I am going for Noppy. It's towards the upset.
Do you think Peter not being there, or do you think Peter getting knocked out makes any difference whatsoever to Gezi Price? Mindset, no. I'm not. I've just seen
not for me. Not
people talking.
Maybe if it was later on, and I don't. Maybe it could then, but I don't think it will. I don't think it has that impact just yet. But I'm going for Noppy to come through it, and I think it's going to be tight. I'm with you around the store lines. I'm going to go with 10-8, but just the opposite way. I think Noppy can come through that one. And Tommy has also got the shot. The defence comes to an end. I'm with you there. Tommy, I think we're agreeing on quite a bit tonight. This is not done. Not good for you, mate. Darren's done 10-8. Price, he's done with you, Dan. Price 10-7. Price 10-6. Price is coming out the favourite as expected. I just think Noppy can cause that upset, but it's worked out quite well draw-wise, because whoever comes through, that will be favourite going into Whitlock or Barney. Then moving on to the 4th and final game of tomorrow night, Dan. This one is between Dirk van Duivenbode and Joe Tullen. Your thoughts on that one?
I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a prediction that I think if you'd have asked me to predict this game at any time in the last 2 years, I'd have given you a different prediction. Then I would have picked a different winner and a different score. But I just think, sometimes the stars align, and that's the way that things are looking. I think it's Dirk van Duivenbode at 10-7. I think Dirk looks really sharp at the minute. And I think in the last few times we've seen him on telly, in the latter part of some of the Pro Tour events, we've seen him certainly looking very sharp, like he wants to do a bit. Joe has had some big highs this year, and he's had some tremendous nights in the Premier League. He looks a little bit fragile at the moment. Looked a bit fragile early doors against Lisa. Now, this is a longer format, and he had to come from behind there. And in a longer format, you'd look at that game and said he was never in danger because he caught it up so quickly. You won't need to get out so fast. But Dirk van Duivenbode is such a fast starter, and he does go at it immediately. Like, you don't get a chance to work into a game really with it. I just think Dirk gets over the line. But I think if you'd have asked me that question to predict that game in the last 16, if you'd have asked me any time in the last 2 years, I'd have back colour. But not right now.
I still back Joe to get the job done. I can see what you're saying about Dirt. I think the levels are there for Dirt. Just the London format, I think, suits Joe, just with the experience he's had in that London format more recently. And I just think that Joe Tullen will get over the line. I'm going to go with the same scoreline as you were then, Dan, actually. I'm going to go with 10-7, just to reverse player in that one. So just to confirm, Dan, you've done Barney 10-6, Smith 10-7, Price 10-8, and Dirt 10-7. I've done Whitlock 10-8, Smith 10-6, Noppy 10-8, and Tullen 10-7. We only agree on one result, and that is
that's quite good though, because that means this time tomorrow night, at least one of us looks a fool, don't they?
or like normal, both of us will somehow still look like fools. Dan.
Yeah, I was going to say we might manage to equally get it completely wrong. Yeah,
just a few in the chat room then before we go. Jack has done for 10-4 to Dirt. Tommy's done for a last leg decider, and he's putting an absolute belter. I think any of those 4 games, if we get 10-9, we are in for a belter. He's done for Dirt in that one. Darren's done 10-9 Cullen. Whatever happens in this game, and Colin's done 10-9 Cullen. Whatever happens, it seems like 19 legs is on. Because everyone seems to be down for.
It's a really good set of games.
Yeah, it's a great set of games. Dan, as normal, thank you very much for your company. I am looking forward to be joined with you tomorrow night. I've got the scores on the screen. I'll make sure I send them over to you. I've not even though it's on YouTube and it's there to be seen by everyone. Everyone else in the chat room, thank you very much for your participation and listening along. As normal, we are in for another fantastic night tomorrow night when we start at 7 o'clock as per, but we move to the best of 19. As I missed them off at the start, I'll make sure I don't miss them off. BoyleSports, thank you very much for your continued support, and remember to look at the recommended bets at the start of each day that Phil will put on our websites. Also, I know there's a comment in the chat room around the interviews. The interviews are available from today's game on our website, on YouTube, sorry. They hopefully from tomorrow night, we will have the clips in the show. So we'll try and get them in between each game as we move into the last 16. So we've just gone past midnight in the UK. Thank you very much, as always, for joining us. And me and Dan will see you tomorrow night. Good night.